Hey everyone, today the focus is on painting a bust called Eligor the Duke of War by Pegaso Models. It is technically 1:6 scale, but since it's a demon, the scale is mostly a guess. The bust has many parts and features great detail. The resin casting is high quality, but still needs some cleaning. Some parts don't fit perfectly, especially the head and the body. This is a chunky and weighty piece of resin even with a hollow torso. The plan is to fill it and mount it on a wooden base, which will make it even heavier. The work started with the hardest part. The head and torso had a large gap between them. Even after sanding, the gap was still there. Since the bust is so big, it's better to keep it in 3 parts for easy transport: the head, the torso and the base. This gap was a real problem, requiring a file and epoxy putty to fix it. For extra strength, steel wire pins were used for all the horns. This keeps them from breaking and makes them easier to glue after painting. At this stage, parts that won't get in the way of my brush were also glued. Any remaining gaps were filled with superglue and sanded down. Next is the torso. After cleaning it, a way to connect the bust to the wooden base was needed. The resin stand from the kit wasn't quite right for me personally, so it was cut down. To hold the heavy bust securely, a thick metal rod was used. The hollow body was filled with wood filler. Once it dried, it was sealed with a 2-component quick-setting epoxy. This made the torso twice as heavy. As mentioned, the head should be detachable, so it will attach with magnets. Holes were drilled in both the head and the neck. It was tricky because the surfaces are curved, making it unclear if the magnets would align or to be strong enough. In the end, 2 magnets weren't enough. Off camera, a third, more powerful neodymium magnet had to be added. find the center of the round base, a compass was used, set to half of the diameter, making 2 marks from different sides pointed exactly to the center. To degrease the model, a large container and several liters of 96% alcohol were used. Sadly, this demon killed my airbrush, which had served me for 5 years. Because of that, I had to finish the priming with the brush. Although, if I'm being honest, it was probably poor maintenance that killed it. And after 3 days of preparation, it's finally time to paint. Work began with the horns. The overall look will be dark, so the horns decoration were painted in gold and silver to make them pop. For shading, Agrok's Earthshade by Citadel was used. The horns themselves were painted with skeleton contrast, then highlighted by drybrushing the skeleton bone. For the skin base, a mix of Gilliman flesh and a drop of Elior's pink was used. This creates a dark purplish brown tone. The wrinkles and folds were painted using only 2 colors, a light flesh tone for the highlights and a standard flesh tone for everything else. Layering theirs over the dark base gives a very creepy realistic look. The trick is not to overdo the flesh tones, the dark background must stay visible. The large bone coming out of his head was painted in a classic style. Later, blood effects will be added, dripping from the holes in the bone. Using some leftover skeleton bone on the palette, a base was made for the mouth and tongue. This was followed by Valiopus pink and highlighted with the Serra effect, but any dull pink worked too. Finally, the mouth and teeth were coated with satin varnish to make them look wet. The last 2 steps were creating saliva using rubber glue and the final assembly. It took over 10 attempts to get the saliva right, sometimes even requiring the teeth to be repainted. This was the most stressful part so far. The head alone is so big and detailed that it felt like painting an entire standard-sized bust. When I recorded the previous segment, I thought I was done with the head, but I added a few more details later. First, I gave him a beard made from cotton swabs. I used superglue because PVA and varnish didn't hold well. This also helps hide the gap between the head and the body completely. Second, I painted the saliva with Nurgle's rod to show his foul breath and dirty teeth. I also painted part of the mouth with this grainy yellow color. To break up the look, I added some more yellow spots. Once dry, the paint became semi-clear, which was exactly what I wanted. I started the torso with the bone scales on his back, shoulders and chest. Since the main color of the bust is brown, I used different shades so everything wouldn't blend together. I used a very dark brown for the base and very light flesh tone for the bright highlights. This makes the scale pop against the body. To finish, I applied an ochre oil to make the transition smooth. One of the best features of this bust is the spine and bones sticking out of the body. It makes the demon look twisted and evil. These areas are quite large, so they need a lot of focus. There is no shortcut here, you just need patience. And here is the process. First, apply a base coat of skeleton bone or any light gray. Second, apply a heavy coat of skeleton horde contrast. Third, dry brush with the base color to bring back the light tone. Fourth, apply aggressive shade for deep shadows and texture. Fifth, dry brush with the base color again. Sixth, carefully add a yellowish tint with skeleton horde. Seventh, one final light dry brush on the wear ridges. It's a long process, but the result is worth it. Every inch looks unique. As I said, I used many browns in this project. To keep the skin from looking boring, I used the same mix of Gilliman Flesh and Volupus Pink as I did on the head, but with more pink this time. This gives the skin a bloody under-the-surface look. I dry brushed the wrinkles with a flesh tone and added pure Volupus Pink into the deepest folds. The leather pad on his shoulder was kept in simple brown tones. The sculptor made the texture very clear, so a quick dry brush was all it needed. The final touch for the torso was the blood. To make the demon look more supernatural, I added blood streaks where the bones exit the body. I also smeared a thin layer of blood on the bones themselves. I used only one type of blood paint, but in different amounts. I'm not sure exactly what that object on his shoulder is. There were two smaller parts for it, but I didn't like them, so I left them off. The design reminds me of the movie Alien. I wasn't sure what colors to use, so I kept it simple: gold, silver and light grey for the skulls. Even though it looks small, this part took a whole day to finish because I had to wait for the paint to dry. With that finished, the bust is 100% complete. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time, take care.